Join us as we share our children's experience with play therapy and how these approaches are helping our girls manage anxiety, particularly around performance and fear of failure. We'll also discuss how Autplay and autism-tailored play therapy is teaching them new skills to help them express emotions and build confidence. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that notification bell, like, share, and subscribe. Let's get started. Hi, Embracers.
Welcome back.
I have been waiting for a while to talk about this because I wanted to make sure that we actually tried play therapy and we were seeing some results before we talked about it. I personally have history with play therapy because back in my college days, I actually interned for a play therapist facility. And so I've seen play therapy from the inside, but I had never had my own kids attend it. So I wanted to make sure we got that perspective. And now that we have, I feel like we're at a place where we can share that experience.
And I've seen the outside perspective, where I go to the facility and sit in the lobby. So
Where you just
we
sit in
have
the waiting room.
we have two approaches, inside and outside. So there we go.
Yeah, so for those of you who are not familiar with play therapy, a lot of people have not heard of it. There's a lot of talk about the basics of like OT, ST, PT, and the biggest one for autism, which is ABA therapy. A lot of times, parents who aren't comfortable with ABA therapy ask what are some alternatives. And we've mentioned over and over again how we are really big fans of floor time therapy as an alternative to ABA. But if you're looking for some more emotional type of stuff, where you're dealing with more of that emotional regulation part, executive functioning, those sorts of things with your child, there's actually play therapy that is tailored to autism, and that is called Autplay. And it's basically like a subcategory of play therapy, but they tailor the experience of a counseling setting to a child through play. And they also add in certain exercises that are basically customized to the autistic experience. So it's something that I feel like is perfect for the kids who have a hard time expressing themselves. You don't even have to be verbal to play. So I think it's a great alternative for those kids who would not be doing well in a typical like sit down talk therapy type of counseling.
Right. And I mean, we've had our oldest in it for, gosh,
A
I
couple
guess.
months now, I think.
Well, pushing. It's almost close to a year, coming up on a year here in a few months.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen, big improvements um, just as far as her state of neutral. Like it seems like there's less like anxiety and stress that she is like contending with on a typical day to day. So I mean, we've really seen a huge improvement. I mean, and the school, I mean, has as well, because we were talking last year, we were able to see and coordinate right to when she kind of transitioned from having like a really hard time at school, really rough days where she's kind of coming home frequently crying and in tears and upset. And then almost right from when we started play therapy, there was a huge transition where she wasn't coming home crying. She was much more, um, I guess, upbeat about school, and she no longer disliked going to school. She was more. She was having more fun at school with her peers and everything. And so, I mean, right from the beginning, we saw a huge transition for her. And now, her younger sister is in play therapy because we thought it would be good for her to kind of have a similar experience.
Yeah, so one of the things that our oldest struggled with particularly was performance anxiety, kind of like the perfectionism OCD type of anxiety, where she would be at school and if she was like doing a handwriting lesson or something and she just slightly didn't do the I correctly, that would overwhelm her and she'd get a lot of anxiety and feel like a failure and then she couldn't move on from that. She would just get stuck in a meltdown mode, she'd get hyperfixated. The teachers couldn't get her to move on. They couldn't get her to like understand that it was okay. And so getting to the root of that anxiety is part of play therapy. And what they have done is get to her inner core through play activities that she's interested in. So one of the examples that I can share with you is she is particularly into Disney princesses right now. That's like one of her little special interests. And one of the things that they did that was really creative is they incorporated Disney princess toys and they allow you as a child to essentially play your life through the dolls. So It's kind of like they'll set up scenarios and they'll give the kid access to like a house and tables and chairs, whatever it may be. And then the doll is going to recreate aspects of her life. So they'll ask her like, "Oh, let's pretend we're at school." And they're not going to really push too much. They kind of want to see what she intuitively does on her own naturally. But through observation, you will kind of see kids bring up themes that are common that happen every day in their own lives. So, for example, one of the things that she used to do with the dolls is she would constantly, when they were in some sort of like anxiety situation or some sort of high stress situation, she would take the little doll and she would put him in like a little tent in the corner. She'd make like a little pillow fort or something out of like paper and stuff for the dolls. And she started making one for each of the dolls. And one of the things that we learned from that was she specifically wanted each doll to have their own quiet space and was uncomfortable with the idea of one doll sharing that quiet space with another doll. So, through that, we learned that she is the type of person that when she's overwhelmed, she really prefers her own private, quiet space. And that explains a lot for us in terms of how she would react to when her sister would come into her room or come into her little fort that we would make. She would get really aggressive and really defensive. And because of play therapy, we were able to kind of uncover the reasons behind that.
Yeah, which I mean now allows us, I mean, having that additional knowledge, so we know that okay, her safe space or where she needs to kind of get back to neutral if she's having a hard time, a lot of stress, she needs to kind of be more isolated where she can kind of just breathe, relax. If she wants to lie down on some pillows or her bed or sofa, wherever she wants to set up her little safe area at, to allow her to have that space so it's not that mom, dad, younger sister are coming into her space so she can kind of just relax and kind of push the world away for a few minutes and then kind of come out on her own terms when she's kind of recharged and in a better state of mind. So I mean, that was super helpful. I think one of the big ones that I observed um was essentially using the play princesses to kind of reenact situations between her and her sister. So our oldest daughter, for whatever reason, appears to be very competitive where she has to be first with everything. And we've mentioned this before where it doesn't matter if she is first to brush her teeth, get dressed, go down the stairs, like she wants to be first for everything. And so the play therapist was actually working with her with the princess dolls to show her that it's okay if another princess wins. It doesn't take away anything from you or this other princess. And we can congratulate them and we can say, great race, good job. But it doesn't lessen anything for the other one. It's just, oh, okay, sometimes you're first, sometimes you're second, and it doesn't impact you that way. So we've seen huge improvements. I mean, not just for a school environment, but also for a home environment among just our family. So, I mean, I definitely think that, I mean, it is very beneficial for, I mean, what we've seen since she's been attending.
Yeah, the other thing that she did through those same princess dolls is she was able to use them to kind of recreate things that would stress her out in real life that she could kind of do a practice run with the dolls. So, for example, let's say that she wants her own private space or she wants to go first in something. She can practice with the dolls. Okay, how do you think Princess Jasmine should ask Cinderella if she wants to go first? Maybe she should ask, "Can I have a turn?" Or it's like another way of doing that role play that we usually advise. So a lot of times we recommend, oh, do a practice run, do some role playing activities. This is for those kiddos that might not be as receptive to like real life role play. They might be more receptive to play role play through their favorite toys, whether it's like, I don't know, Legos or if it's Disney princesses, whatever it may be. You can use their special interests to help them practice those skills as well. So it doesn't have to be real life role play. It could be through toys. And that's something that play therapy is really good at.
And one of the other things that I mean, just us talking now and thinking on it, it also teaches her, I would assume, more empathy because if you are basically playing both sides of the princesses. If one princess says something to the other one, she has to think about like, okay, if this were a situation where was in, what would this princess say in response? So it kind of allows her to play both ends and kind of see what each princess would essentially be thinking and as well as potentially feeling. And I mean, they've been working a lot with different types of feelings that working through a little bit more complex ones. So it also helps with the empathy because if you are role playing in real life, you kind of say one thing, but you're essentially kind of like acting it out where you're only kind of, I think, focused on yourself. But this kind of removes you from that scene a little bit where you are able to kind of play both sides and kind of have a perception that you wouldn't necessarily have with like a standard role playing scenario.
Yeah. The other thing about play therapy is it's not limited to just play. There's also exercises that you can do with like worksheets and visual aids and things like that that they incorporate specifically in Autplay. They will use a lot of stuff that autistic kids are receptive to, like those visual aids. One of the ones that our kiddo used was the use of like these taco faces. I thought that was funny because she came home talking about tacos, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" But it's like a printable that the therapist had, and each of the tacos have different emotions on them, and it's to help pin down the more nuanced emotions. So when the therapist was walking me through it, she was like, "Yeah, a lot of kids have an easy time understanding like happy or sad, but they don't really understand the more nuanced expressions of what they're feeling. So if they're feeling anxious, that was a word that initially our kid didn't know. And then she came home one day and she's like, "Oh, I'm feeling anxious." And I was like, "How do you know what anxious is?" And it's because they were talking about these nuanced emotions. And I have definitely noticed that since they've given her these emotional tacos with all the different emotions on it, I've definitely noticed that she is way more able to realize when she's feeling anxious than before. Like now that there's like a word to what she's feeling, she will tell us like, "I'm feeling a little anxious right now." And then she'll kind of warn us essentially like, "Hey, I need some quiet time." That's something that we gained straight from the play therapy.
Right, because it used to just be essentially like happy or sad, like either you have good day, bad day. But now she's understanding like, oh, I can still have a good day, but I feel a little anxious or nervous or stressed out, whatever the other more complex emotion is that she's feeling. So she's able to kind of break it down and kind of explain it better to us than if she just said, like, I'm having a bad day because she doesn't necessarily know what stress is. And she's now able to put a word to it. So I think it's more helpful for us in the long term because we can kind of assist more with if someone's saying, like, oh, I'm stressed out, we can kind of like nurture that a little bit more versus like I'm angry or I'm sad. I mean, there's not as much that you can really do in some of those circumstances. So I think that it does help us understand like what she needs on from us to give to her to be better off.
Yeah. So, in addition to helping her identify and talk about her feelings, it also creates kind of like an ambiance of a safety around the discussion of emotions. So, basically, by having this chart with taco emotions and it's visible and available in our house on the fridge, she now knows, like, oh, it's okay if I talk about these things. Like, not only is it okay, but it's like open, welcomed, it's right there where everyone can see it. So it kind of encourages that type of discussion so that your kids don't feel fearful of speaking up if they're feeling certain emotions that maybe they don't either know what they are or maybe they don't feel like they can express them because they're used to happy, sad, angry, just like standard emotions. So I think that that is something that has been helpful, particularly with autistic kiddos, having that visual representation of the emotion to kind of help them tie what they're feeling to something in the outside world in terms of like a visual look on the face or some sort of like feeling that's internal and being able to connect that and relay it to their parent or caregiver.
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily linked to kind of the emotions, but she's also been as far as like using like the phrase, like if she gets like put in timeout or something, like oh, like you've hurt my what is it? Like you've hurt my heart,
My heart, you hurt
my
my
heart.
heart.
Right, but but it also, like, it gets her kind of to back to normal essentially a little bit faster because then we're like, "Well, we're sorry we hurt your heart, but, like, you, weren't listening and we had to put you in timeout." And then she's kind of able to come to terms with that a little bit better, knowing that, like, we're not putting you in timeout just to be mean. There was a reason why we had to put you in timeout to kinda separate you for whatever the cause may be. But it seems like she's actually coming to terms with that faster. So, like, whenever I hear the you've hurt my heart, and we kind of say like, we didn't mean to hurt your heart, like we just didn't want you to get hurt or whatever the circumstances, then it's almost like immediate, like she's like, oh, okay, and then she's like, will tell us that she feels better. So it's almost like a complete 180 of, before this she would be upset and, oh, you're doing this to be mean, or you're upset with me, and we just kind of basically tell her like, no, we're concerned that your safety or whatever it is, we don't want you to be hurt, and then she kind of bounces back a lot faster. So I definitely think that, I mean, for the techniques that they've been teaching her, I mean, they've been working fantastic from our home life, and it seems like so far this school year has been going fantastic. And I think that is also because she has been steadily going through play therapy for the last 9 months or so.
Yeah. And honestly, that expression of "you hurt my heart" has been extremely powerful for her. It has unlocked a lot of emotional connection with her because prior to her being able to use that phrase, she basically would just have a meltdown where she was just like physically aggressive and she's not saying anything, like she's not really communicating with you. She's just kind of like crying and throwing herself on the floor and like really upset, and she might throw things, and she wasn't really telling us how she felt. She wasn't really, I think, even aware of really how she felt. And so by going to therapy and being able to find the words of what she was feeling in that time, now when she's starting to feel those sensations in her body and she's starting to feel herself get to that point, she's able to kind of cool it down because she can express it now. Now she tells us, "You're hurting my heart." And because she could tell us that, we can reciprocate immediately. So we can kind of nip the meltdown in the bud by giving whatever appropriate response it may be. A lot of times, what we'll do is we'll kind of get to her eye level, give her some cuddles, and be like, "Honey, we're not trying to break your heart. It's just, actions have consequences. And if you do this, these are the consequences." And then because we're able to acknowledge that she feels that way, she becomes more amenable to whatever the punishment is for the action. So if it's like a timeout or whatever it may be, then she's like, "Okay, fine." And she'll do it. And that's literally verbatim what she says. "Okay,
Well,
fine."
I think one of my favorite back and forth between you and her was basically saying, like, she was saying, "Oh, you hurt my heart," and then you responded with, "You hurt my heart too," because I think she said something mean or rude to you, and then she kind of had like a like, "Wait a minute," and then like she's reflecting, and then she was like, "I'm sorry, I hurt your heart," and then like it was kind of like a back and forth where it's kind of like the two of you kind of saying, "Well, I'm sorry too," and then like everything like magically like was
Resolved.
better in like 5 seconds, because as soon as you like were able to spin it back that you are feeling the same that she is feeling, she's like, oh, like I can relate to you, and then she was able to say, oh, I'm sorry, like just kind of to try and make things better, saying I didn't mean to hurt your heart, and then from then everything kind of just like vanished into air, like thin air, like it was, everything was better, and I was like, wow, that worked out surprisingly well. So
Yeah, honestly, I've
uh
been surprised with how effective the play therapy has been. I mean, we did see improvement pretty much within 2 weeks of starting it, like just 2 sessions. We
right,
already saw dramatic improvement in school. And when I say dramatic, I mean the teachers were telling us, "Hey,
right, they
what's going on? Like she's acted perfect the last 2 weeks in school."
right. They notice a huge change, and I mean, and then from then on, it's been pretty consistent. I mean, obviously, every once in a while, like there'll be a hiccup, there'll be like a an off day or whatever, not enough sleep or whatever. But I would say 9 times out of 10, totally different experience than the previous year without it. So I definitely think it's a very, very valuable tool to actually have and utilize.
Yeah. And honestly, like if your kiddos are nonverbal, they wouldn't be able to get the nuanced insights that we got, but you could still get a lot through play that you probably wouldn't get otherwise, just watching them play and go through these sessions. As long as they have good receptive language, if they don't have good expressive language, I think play therapy would still be really beneficial for them. Honestly, more beneficial for them than probably even our kids.
Well, I was going to
Um,
say, because, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, because our youngest started probably like 2 weeks ago, but she struggles a little bit more with the language and kind of the expressive. So we haven't, or I haven't really noticed as much, I guess, transition in her as the her older sister. But granted, she only started a couple of weeks ago, so I mean, obviously, we'll give it several months to actually kind of see like, okay, can we notice a difference or a trend in kind of her behavior and how she's acting towards like us, her sister, uh, kids at school, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So A lot of things that we do too is we try to pull from the techniques that we learn in the therapies and have a really open line of communication with the therapist so that we could take those techniques and bring them home. That's probably the most important part of any therapy, whether it's OT, ST, play therapy, whatever it may be. Don't just let the therapy happen in the session behind closed doors one day a week and then let it sit there. It's not going to be as effective. So we always go out of our way to try to pull from those sessions and see what we can recreate at home, which is why we brought home the little taco emotions. And it's why we decided to put together a fort for her because we learned, hey, in therapy, she's really using like these forts for her dolls. Maybe in real life, if we make her a fort, she'll be really receptive to it, which we discovered she is. So one of the tips that I would always give to parents is make sure you are actually really involved and it's not like a drop off system where you're just dropping your kid off to therapy saying, hey, fix my kid, and then you pick them up. That's not how it works. That's not how people work. And it's just not going to be effective. You're going to have to be involved. You're going to have to get dirty, basically get your hands dirty in there, and you're going to have to do the work at home to make that effective. So one of the ways that we did that was basically creating a play space for her. We did that with the safe zone with her little fort that we put together. A lot of times we just do the basic sheets and pillow fort type of thing, but we're looking into maybe getting her like a tent or something that she might like. The other thing that we did is we incorporated more of her favorite characters and themes. So a lot of times when she's frustrated or overwhelmed or doesn't want to do something, we encourage her through the use of her favorite character at the time. So right now it's actually Mario. And when she's getting really frustrated with homework, I'll be like, no, I don't want you to do the homework. Where's Mario? Bring Mario. I want Mario to do the homework. And then she'll put on Mario's accent and she'll be like, woohoo. And then she'll start doing the homework in the accent of Mario and have no problem with it because she feels like she's playing. So just getting creative and playing to those kind of special interests has gone a long way for us.
And it was actually adorable because her teacher the other day um, actually sent us a picture. So our oldest daughter, she's always struggled with having like headphones on whenever they have to do a computer activity. So she sent us a picture saying like, I think we finally solved the problem with the headphones. And she sent us a picture of like in the classroom they've got Mario stuffed dolls. So she's got Mario and Luigi both with like the headphones on as our oldest daughter is sitting right next to them. So we're just laughing because we're like, oh, fantastic. Like the teacher is like on board with like realizing like, okay, like if I can use like Mario to kind of work with her, like things are a lot easier to kind of like navigate those waters. So it was actually funny because we're like, oh, fantastic. Like she's getting Mario wherever she goes.
Yeah. I mean, if it works, do it, right? That's what we do. We just take advantage of whatever they're interested in, work it in. If you feel silly, so be it. It's getting it done. She's happy, we're happy. That's all that really matters at the end. Who cares what people think?
Right.
So if I'm walking around and I'm talking in a Mario voice, I just ignore everyone. Everyone who's staring at me, they're like, okay. So yeah, that's basically what we've been doing, what we've been working on, and we're continuing to put them through these play therapy sessions. Now that the youngest one is just starting them, we're hoping to learn more about how she thinks, what she feels, what her safe zones are, and then just recreating that stuff at home to see if we can help her as well. But we've seen a lot of improvement, and if you're struggling with your kid to find any sort of therapy that helps them express their emotions or deal with the anxiety that is really common with neurodivergent kiddos, that is definitely something that I would recommend. Play therapy has been great for them, and I plan on doing it for a while for them, but I would definitely look into it. The only downside is play therapy can be difficult to find. It's not easy to find. And the other downside is insurances don't tend to cover it. So ours is being covered through a grant that we have in our area that's specifically for special needs or kids with disabilities. So if you have an insurance that won't cover it, which most likely it won't, look into your local areas to see if there's any grants that will cover it, because oftentimes there will be at least something around there. And you can also ask and see if they're willing to do like a sliding scale or something like that. But yeah, those are my recommendations and really all I have left to say on that front. But we do have one more thing to take care of today before we forget, since we consistently seem to forget. Do you remember, Matt?
Well, I was going to call it the Wheel of Doom, but I feel like that's a little dark. Um, the Wheel of something. We haven't. Do we have a name for it?
We don't have Wheel of Wishes. I think that's
I
what we
don't
did
know.
last time. Yeah. So it is that time again where we do our random selection for our $100 monthly grant where we give away up to $100 worth of sensory stuff from a kiddo's Amazon wish list. So we are going to go ahead and draw that winner. And then once we get their name, we're going to contact them and grant them wishes. So here we go. I'm going to click and we will see who today's winner is. All right. So I click the wheel. It is spinning. And our winner is, let's see,
Someone in green. Oh,
Leslie
yellow.
Sepulveda. Man, I probably butchered that last name. I'm so sorry, Leslie. But congratulations. We will reach out to you and we will send you an email. Check your inbox. We will go ahead and get your child hooked up. For anybody who is not familiar and wants to enter your child to this, just visit our website, autismwish.org. Click on Make a Wish, and then there's a form there for you to submit for your kiddo to be put into this drawing. We do it once a month, and it's up to $100 worth of Amazon stuff. Only available and open to U.S. residents. We cannot do international, unfortunately. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Before we head out, I'd just like to know, what do you guys think about play therapy? Was this your first time hearing of it? Have you done it before? If your child has tried it, did you see success? Did you feel like it didn't really work for you? Or do you have some sort of anxieties about trying it because maybe your kiddo is nonverbal? Maybe they're a little more opposed to trying new things and interacting with people like some kiddos tend to be. Let us know by continuing the conversation in the Embracing Autism community, or you can leave us a comment on YouTube and Facebook at Autism Wish. Also, don't forget to become a member today, and you can connect with other parents as well as me and Matt. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I will see you all next week.
All right. Bye.
Bye.